Coach, thanks for joining me today on this Coach interview. It is great to see you, my friend. The last time we saw each other was not on good circumstances as Mount Union lost to North Central in the national championship. So it's great catching up with you, and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you. Appreciate you having me back on.
Always. You are always a welcome guest here. Okay, so let's just start from the get-go. This is your second year, right? Like this past season was your second season.
Correct.
Thoughts? How did it go?
I think anytime you look at the record we had, 5, 6, and 7, which is just kind of a gross kind of combination of numbers to look at, it's not something that you're ever going to be super pumped about, but. I got to be honest, I'm really happy with, I think, the lessons we learned as a program this year. We talked to the guys throughout the year. I think we played about 20 guys per game, and about 14 of those guys per game were freshmen and sophomores. We lost a lot of leadership, 6 seniors and 3 of those being fifth-year seniors from the year before. We lost 63% of our points and goals and assists from the year before. So, and we upped our strength of schedule by about 10% this year. I'm never going to be happy with that type of, those crooked numbers on the record sheet. But we finished the season 8 games unbeaten, losing in penalties in our conference semifinal, and I'm just really, I feel really positive about the way that the program's headed, and I think our guys do too. So, again, it's a tough question to answer because I'm not happy with how that season record ended up. That's at the end of the day. It's kind of how you're judged in the coaching world. But I do think that there's a lot of signs of progress. So I'm happy with that as long as we can switch those numbers up at the end of next season.
So I'm just looking at your schedule, and you're right. Like, your goal production is way down, right? I think that probably explains some of those numbers because – you have like 3 4-0-0 ties, which is, you don't see a lot of, you see ties, but you don't see a lot of 0-0s,
Yeah. And we lost a lot of games in conference by 1 goal or something like that. I think that with a bunch of young attacking players this year, we found ourselves in some great spots, in terms of shots overall. I think we had more shots and more corners and those offensive indicators that the layman would look at to compared to last year. We didn't put as many of them on frame, and we didn't convert the chances we had. So we scored a few less goals, but we gave up less goals than we did the year prior. So again, I think it's all marks of truly a new sort of system this year that we're trying to implement, and a new group of guys just learning lessons.
Yeah. So what's your strategy on the recruiting side? Like, are you right? Like, I'm curious. Like, defensively, you do. There's a couple outliers, right? Like the Capital Denison games.
Yeah, and even Denison, they scored their 3rd goal with, I think it was 6 seconds left on the clock or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So defensively, you seem to be, like you said, strong. Or stronger. I didn't do a comparison, but so what is your strategy? What are you looking what are you looking for?
Yeah. We're going to graduate a couple of those key defenders. So obviously looking to bring in guys that can compete for that time and help us continue that defensive improvement. But at the same time, I'm always looking for good players. I think I'm fortunate enough to be in an institution like Transylvania. It's got a lot of individuals that want to come here. So, we've talked about the unique circumstances, small school in a bigger city. And for me, I think the moment I start to look at guys as just coming in as a backup or just coming in as like, oh, we're going to, add a little bit of depth here. It's like, no, I want to add guys that I think can come in and at least compete to play right away. Every young kid has got to learn his lessons, right? But I think that you were still trying to add quality players all over the field, and it's more about, for me, that match being in in the type of person they are, that I have a vision and can share that vision clearly with that individual on how they're going to be a part of this program. Some guys are great when they hear, "Hey, I'd love you to come in and work really hard, and maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, you're getting time." But I still think you need to be specific about where you see them on the field and those sorts of things. So it'll be a smaller class for us. I mean, I'm looking at maybe 7, 8 guys. But beyond that, it's just got to be the right people that are going to help us continue to push this culture, continue to do things the right way, and love the game, love the work that comes with it. Because every coach you talk to will tell you it's not easy to win. In
Yeah.
fact, I think a lot of these coaches that are really successful probably get upset when people are like, "Oh, well, you just got the best talent. You've got the best facility."
Yeah.
It's like, well, it still takes a heck of a lot of work to go out there and get the job done.
That was my point over the last, well, what I've been saying over the last couple of years, and it started with Western Connecticut that went undefeated but didn't make the tournament. Under any circumstance, and this is where you throw, I think, strength of schedule out. To win is difficult, whatever your conditions are,
Yeah,
right? And to win consistently is very difficult.
yeah,
And to string together, right, bunch of wins in a row, man, that is so hard, especially in the compressed season and all that stuff. But
right.
it's just super difficult. So anybody who does, it's like, wow, you got to give them credit, right? So,
Absolutely.
I saw last year some of your recruits were from like some of the, I don't know if it was at MLS Next. It was like you had Louisville.
Lou City was
Lou
the
City, yeah.
ECNL squad, with
ECNL
USL
squad.
Academy. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you? I'm just curious, and if not, it's not a big deal. But I'm curious, like, are you slowly trying to sort of like elevate the pool from which you pull from?
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, that's the main goal for everybody, right? Is to get kids that have trained and competed at a high level. So I would say that the majority of our squad right now is probably some level of ECNL. There's some other kids that have different backgrounds that are quality kids, but those National League E64, ECNL are all the majority of our roster. So you're looking to get kids that have trained at a high level, that understand what it takes, and to be honest, probably understand that there's a level out there that they haven't reached. I was fortunate enough in my athletic career to be around some really high level guys as a young kid, guys that played in the NFL and went on to Division I basketball, football, that sort of stuff. So I was never under this illusion that I was a fantastic athlete. I was a good athlete. It was a good athletic family, and I would challenge anybody on my day to compete with them. But I think that there is an understanding of where you are in the pecking order when it comes to looking at kids and going, "Hey, I'm good, but I'm not going to Clemson." Right?
Yeah.
And getting those sorts of kids, because it's just a special person and a special athlete that has the ability and the work ethic to make it at the highest level.
Yeah. I think that's like it is such a rarefied group, like those guys, like those athletes across any sport that sort of are able to go to some of these. They're the elite of the elite of the elite, right? And I was kind of shocked that you actually had an athletic career. Like I don't look at it, like hey, yeah. Probably kick my ass next time. I don't like to curse on this thing. We talked about this briefly, and I don't want to go into depth about it just because, right, I want to focus on you, on your program. But I'm just, because I'm looking at your schedule, and you're playing Capital University, and the news just came out today that Corey Kirk is going from Muskingum to Capital. You mentioned you know him. So I just wanted to get your thoughts about that move. What do you think it means for Capital?
I mean, first and foremost, I think Alan Yost is a great guy. That leaving that program is probably a tough gap for them to fill. And I'm sure that there are other people in the candidacy for that role. But I think Corey's a great guy, man. I mean, He works hard every time I'm out there. He coaches OP as well, so he's coaching a high level club. He's been around high level programs at OWU. Um, I mean, I just think he's a great person that's going to do well there. I mean, I don't know enough specifically about capital to tell you kind of his exact process and what he's going to get going. That's even if I did know, that's probably Corey's information, not mine. But no, I think it's great. I think it's cool to me. Obviously, growing up in the OAC to a certain extent, to continue to see young coaches, get involved all over the place. Another kid that I actually coached early in his career, Anthony Clark, just got the Mount St. Joe job. He was at Ohio Northern for a little bit and then spent last year at Detroit Mercy. So it's great to see, I think, a bunch of new faces coming into the game that, the OAC, the NCAC has been dominated by these kind of the godfathers.
Patriarchs.
Yeah. I mean, I joke with Reed Ayers up at BW that he's the godfather of the OAC, and he's probably going to kill me for saying that publicly. But, it's cool to see this new group of people coming in. I mean, Jason Griffiths came in at Otterbein, a few years back and has done really well. Chris Mateka is continuing a great legacy up at Ohio Northern. We got Dahan up at John Carroll, and then again Corey Bucher at Wilmington. I mean, they're all over the place. Every school that you look at has got somebody. Krems is at Mount Union, right? I mean, Krems has done great. He was top 10 in the nation at one point this year. And we're going up to play your Purple Raiders here next year in 2024.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That might have to have a special place on my calendar.
So
I'll have to paint my face like I'll do like half purple, half maroon. No, I won't do that.
No, you won't. You go all purple and white.
I'll go all purple. Yeah. I'm actually just looking at the Mount St. Joseph. They're Division III, right? Yeah,
Yep.
they're Division
They're
III.
in our conference in the Heartland. Yep.
And there's Cincinnati. Is that right?
Yep.
Where they are? Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I thought. Okay. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, what? So I like in this season like that. Hey, you ran high because you're a new coach, and everybody's trying to show you, and so you go through the season. What do you think your biggest challenge was this particular season? Where that, I mean, you're a great guy and all, but like the novelty wore off, right?
I think there's a lot of things in life that you don't know until you know. And that goes for our guys going through a season. That goes for me as a young head coach. I think that we can look back and I thought we did really well coming out of preseason. I thought we were playing good soccer. Our first couple of results weren't there, but I felt like we were on the right track. And somewhere there around in the middle where we weren't, we had injuries and this and that, and we just didn't click for whatever reason. And I think the guys would credit to our players. They showed up every day and worked. They adjusted to college life for most of them. We had some fantastic older leaders that were dealt with injuries. Two of our three big seniors, we had a fourth guy too that was great in leadership capacity. Made a great start on senior day for us, but two of those guys were injured. And I think it's tough to win at any level with a really young squad. So, I look at myself and, I think as the coach, you always got to critique what you do. And I think there were times there that, the clarity of vision on my part probably wasn't as crisp as it needed to be when you're looking at exactly what we wanted to see on the field. I think that, I was talking to an alum here. I think it was after we played Rose-Hulman. We tied them and at home, and he said, you can definitely see that the talent's there and the guys are buying in and the things are right there, but the style of play isn't quite manifested yet. I said, I agree 100% because we have to figure out what we don't know. We have to figure out as individuals, as coaches, as players. All right, what was I able to do previously that maybe I can't at the collegiate level, or what was working last year, early in the year that teams have adjusted to. So I don't think there was one thing that held us back this year. I don't think it was, you can look at plenty of those games that we lost or tied where we were out shooting teams and out possessing teams, and the metrics are all positive. But again, at the end of the day, you got to get the result. And I think that's the biggest lesson I hope that our guys take away from this year is it's tough to win games. When it
Yeah.
mattered at the end of the season, hey, 8 in a row unbeaten is a heck of a way to finish the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Um,
looking at that. That is not bad at all. Like, I have 7, 8. Yeah. I mean, you come out of that game with Hanover, and then you just go on a almost like a tear, right? I mean,
yeah, and that was a tough game. I mean, Hanover played really well, made us uncomfortable, and they scored a free kick from, I don't know, we'll say 30, 35 yards out with,
hmm,
we tied it up with less than 5 minutes on the clock or something, and
yeah.
they took the lead with a minute left on our field,
Uh,
and
oh my gosh.
they had a great season too. They lost in the semifinals, and that's a
Yeah.
really well coached team uh, with Wilco. I mean, they're just a couple years removed from a Sweet 16 run.
Yeah.
Uh, so again, I think it's myself and our program, our guys, building a program. It's not something that's
Yeah.
done in
Yeah.
2 years, in 3 years. It's something that takes time.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. There were plenty of days this season where I'm going, man, do I even know what the heck I'm doing? I think that's anytime you face that adversity in life, I think there's that voice in the back of your head sometimes that goes,
Yeah.
man, am I cut out for this? And then
Yeah.
you get down to it, you go, no, just get
Yeah.
back to doing the work. We had a thing with our guys where, again, we were out shooting teams. We had a stretch there where I think we had 3 games and we were 0 of 8 or 0 of 9 from inside the penalty spot with nobody around us and non-goalkeeper saves and ball over the top, and told the guys, hey, you just got to keep flipping the coin. At
Yeah.
some point, all of these chances you're creating, all of these
Yeah.
things that you're doing, it's going to hit the back of the net.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful, and I really do think that our ability to respond from what was not a great start to the season and finish the way we did will give our guys confidence going forward, whether they're down 1-0, whether maybe we lose a game to a good team, that
Yeah.
we still have what it takes, but you got to keep putting in the work every day.
Yeah. You mentioned that you improved your strength of schedule 10% or whatever that,
Yeah.
like, are you still looking to do that? Or are you almost like, you know what, right here is a good spot to be until we figure out, for another couple, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because like you said, it takes time.
it
As
does.
good as, there's only so many times you can go into you know, there's very rare times where you go into a situation where you win it all, right? Like,
Yeah.
and your first year, second year, you gotta progress. So I'm just curious: is it something that you're gonna keep sort of where you're at, or are you gonna try to make it even more difficult next year?
It's a good question. I think that's probably one of the biggest topics of conversations among my circle of coaching friends is
Mm-hmm.
how hard do you want to make it?
Yeah.
Because we all know that you have to play top competition if you're going to make yourself better.
Yeah.
I just really, really believe that. There's no point in going on and scheduling a bunch of games that you know you can win, but you also want to have some confidence from some good results.
Yeah. Yeah.
So finding that balance is tough. I still believe in creating a tough schedule
Yeah.
uh, and preparing our guys for what's to come. I mean, if our goals are to get to a national tournament and do some damage in that tournament, we have to expose ourselves to these teams. So
Yeah.
I don't have a direct answer for, yeah, we're going to stay the exact same or we're going to
Yeah.
try and up it a little bit, but there's also the unknown of how other teams are going to do.
Yeah.
I think we came out and you saw, Manchester in our conference this year was undefeated going into the conference championship game
Yeah.
on the year.
Which was a surprise. I wasn't. I was surprised by that. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
expect
I mean,
that one.
they had a great squad. Chad up there, that coach, did a heck of a job with them. They stuck to what they did this year, and they had some really dangerous offensive players. One of their guys is going to be a transfer to Ohio State now. They're number 9 up top.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so it just goes to show you that year to year, I mean, guys can step up and improve. And Harley, the kid that's going to Ohio State, wasn't even on the roster last year. Um,
Wow.
and so for him to come back and make the impact that he did, I mean, he was an All-American.
Yeah.
It's never ceases to amaze me what somebody or a group of guys or a coach doing the work again
Yeah.
can do for themselves to raise it up.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm going to put a schedule out there that I think is going to challenge us and find a balance of games that we can win. But it's up to us to go do the job every single year. You
Yeah.
can't just assume what's going to happen.
The schedule thing I'm really interested in, just because Coach Chris at Ohio Northern, right? Like, man, does he run the gauntlet? You
Yeah.
know, like I don't think there's a game they could sleep on, and I often wonder, like, is that too much? Especially that coming out of the gate into conference, right? Like
Yeah.
you can be doing great, or you could be over, right? Like you could be
Yeah.
0 for whatever that is, and I
And
think
you've seen both sides of that. I think this year
yeah,
they beat Kenyon big time right away, start the season on a high note.
yeah,
But I think last year was when they lost to Kenyon big time, and it was like, oh man!
yeah,
But then they made a run to the Sweet 16.
yeah.
It's just
So
such a case by case basis. I
yeah,
think Chris does a great job. He's
oh, it's
probably
fantastic.
one of the more organized and thoughtful coaches that I've had
Yeah,
conversations with,
yeah,
um, and he's got a plan for every game.
yeah,
He understands when he schedules something, what it's going to look like for him in terms of roster rotation or testing his guys, and he
yeah,
makes it known to his players. So I commend him for what he's done, and he's been there now for head coach and assistant coach going on probably 11, 12 years or something like that.
yeah,
So he's got that system down pat, and he deserves all the success that they've had.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you heard this too. The rumors about the OAC school going to the NCAC, and I was just kind of like, you could take four of them. You could take Capital, John Carroll, Otterbein, let them go.
Yeah,
Just to pave the way, make it easy for Mount. But
yeah,
um, yeah, no. John Carroll supposedly is going to the NCAC.
that's the rumor that has been circling around.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, what's your spring? What do you what what are you thinking about for your spring? Because I get the sense that you're trying to be really intentional about not only where you want to get to, but where you are.
Yeah,
Which I think a lot of coaches kind of delude themselves because to a certain extent, you live in a bubble, right? There's a major portion of the year where you have no idea what's going on elsewhere. Like you don't know how good a team or bad a team is going to be. So
yeah.
you're just sort of seeing your guys and be like, oh, they look so good. They look so good, right? And you sort of convince yourself of that. So it sounds like you're just, hey, this is where we are and this is where we want to get to. So what does your spring, what do you have in mind for?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question. I think I've always been a believer that our spring season is the precursor to our fall season. It's not the bookend; it's the start. So we're going to come in and classes start on Monday. Our guys will start lifting with our strength coach right away 3 times a week. And with these new rules that we've got in Division III with more access to our guys, we're going to have access to them on a ball at least once a week. And that obviously kind of ramp up as we go through and get a little bit later. But I think that the beauty of it for me is that now once a week, because they go by days, not hours, like you see,
Yeah.
Division II, Division I, is if we're training on a day and I use that as accountable day, now I can talk tactics, we can review film, we can do all of
Yeah.
those things. And I think that's what's going to be really crucial for us as a program here this spring is getting our group of guys understanding again the really specifics of the clarity of vision and what we're looking to do in every aspect of the field. We had some good conversations. We've got some really intelligent guys on our team. That's something that I value a lot in the recruiting process, guys that can make their own decisions when given the proper context. And so clearly defining what those decisions look like, trying to whittle those down a little bit at first from, I don't want you choosing between 1 and 100, but maybe 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and nailing down those things for our guys through a combination of film and technical work and all of that. It's something I've been telling our guys and our leadership council a lot is that the higher standard we want to hold with our guys, the better relationship you have to have with them, right? Somebody for you kind of criticizing you from afar on Twitter with no profile picture, you don't hold much weight to that. But your best friend or significant other comes up and starts to criticize you about something, okay, maybe I need to take a look at this now. So we're really going to start to make sure we have that base level of trust and love for each other, and then really get into the nitty gritty of, hey, when we left in the fall, I gave a depth chart to the guys. I told them exactly where they stand and exactly what they need to do in their position group.
Yeah.
So continuing to build that, continuing to nail down our clarity in our the way we want to play the game is going to be absolutely massive this spring.
Okay, so I have to ask, like, how was that conversation with the players when you told them, "Hey, here are the numbers 1 through 25 or whatever it is. This is where
Yeah.
you stand." What do you think that reaction was? I'm
I do.
curious. Just go
Yeah,
ahead, and then I'll
yeah.
say why I'm.
I think that I love that there's a couple guys that even if they're second in their position, to be clear, I didn't go 1 through 34
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
the
Well,
roster.
right.
I kind of put them in their position groups and said, hey, this is the score that you have. We give a numerical score to all of our
Right.
guys at the end of every fall season, and this is where you rank in your group of forwards or your group of
Yeah.
center mids or defenders. And um, there were some guys that were on top that went, oh wow, like this is awesome. There were some guys that okay, good, awesome. I expected that. There were some guys that were second or third that kind of get that smile on their face and say, all right, coach, I see. Like I'm ready to do the work, and that's all I can want. It's
Yeah.
a the system we use. I kind of grade them not only against the other guys on the team, but against what I think. I've been tracking this stuff for probably 7 years, 8 years now. Where I think they fall in terms of being a conference championship team. And
Mm.
so, you may be, you know, a B plus, we'll say, just to throw arbitrary things out there. And so you're the best forward we have, but maybe all conference is an A plus, right? So just because you're at the top of that individual position group doesn't necessarily mean you're what I need to be that starter in the next
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, it's again, there are guys that they get it right away and they're like, okay, cool, coach, thanks, I appreciate it. And then you get that text message, 48 hours later, like, hey, can we come talk about this a little bit more? It's like, yeah, like, let them process and come back.
That would be
So,
me. Like, okay, okay, and then
yeah,
2 days later, I'd be like, what the hell?
yeah. And we give them those scores. I give them this printout. I track it all over time. And I tell them, I'm like, look, if you're pumped about it, put it up on your fridge, do whatever you want. If you're mad at me, rip it up to shreds. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me what you do with it. I would like to see you, and kind of what I tell them is that it's an Anson Dorrance thing. It's me and you versus the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have graded you, but if you want to get to a starting position or you want to get into the
Yeah.
rotation, now you know the numerical value that you have to
Yeah.
improve every single year.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So I have to ask because I have to ask. Like every time I've had conversations like that with players, invariably I come across those players that have an overinflated understanding or belief in themselves versus the reality or the impression of the coaching staff.
mhm.
Did you have any of those? Without letting out too much, I don't want to like throw your
Yeah, no,
guys under the bus or anything like that. But
I think every player's got an ego, right? Every
yeah,
player thinks that they can be the best. And I think again, what I'm really happy with going through this season is, I mean, we changed our lineup a bunch. We changed systems. We changed people. I mean, it was kind of a revolving door because we had so many guys that would pop up for a week or two and then maybe drop off. And
mm,
so again, building those relationships so I can look them in the eye, put my arm around them, and say, "Hey, man, I appreciate what you're saying, but this is where I have you graded."
yeah,
And
yeah,
my question to you isn't, do you agree? Do you disagree? It's, how do we want to move forward and how do you want to
yeah,
get better?
yeah,
I don't, it's kind of a part of my philosophy is I give them a bunch of numbers. There's probably, what, 3, 6, 12. There's probably 25 to 30 categories that we rank them on.
hmm
And So yeah, and one of them's speed, right? So they always say like, "Well, coach, you gave me a slightly lower grade than this kid. I'm definitely faster than him." It's like
It doesn't work that way.
that quarter point isn't going to make or break you here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's a realistic conversation about the overarching things. The example I always use is, man, if I've got a 5'4" winger and their heading score is low, I'm not talking to them about how to head the ball better because I'm probably
Yeah,
not
yeah,
trying to get them in that, right?
yeah.
So it's more about them understanding what they're good at.
Mm,
Part of that score is our culture, our non-negotiables, is academics, is coachability, things like that.
yeah,
And part of that is now, okay, where can we get better? I have my ideas, you have your ideas. I don't, this is where you are right now. We can disagree on a quarter point here and there, but at the same point, you're going to
yeah,
be around
yeah.
the same
You're
area.
still, yeah, yeah.
So
It's not
where,
100% accurate, but it
yeah,
is within a certain margin
yeah,
of error, right?
yeah. And again, I mean, there's guys. There was one kid in particular that I can think about off the top of my head that literally, I think he improved a quarter point, and this is out of probably 130 points possible. He improved a quarter point from this year or from last year to this year. And I looked at him. I was like, man, I think you had because I don't look at him year to year. I just do
Yeah,
what I think is there. And said, yeah, you know what? I'll be honest with you, man. I think you played better this year than you did last year by more than a quarter point.
yeah,
But that means that the team around you probably got a little bit better. It probably got a little bit tougher to get playing time and that sort of
yeah,
stuff. There's another kid that jumped up 10 points or something like
yeah,
that. Uh, so every kid's kind of got his own story and his own
yeah,
journey, and I think that again, giving them all of that information, but then bringing it back to, hey, this is the path that I see for you if you want to accomplish your goals. And there are guys every year that they go out and they do the 2 or 3 things that you've asked them to do, and they improve year over year over year.
yeah.
And if we have a group of guys on this team and in this program that are doing that, we're going to be in a really, really good spot.
Good spot. Yeah, yeah. I'll just say, as you were talking, I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't even imagine what my scores would have been back in the day. Like we didn't that wasn't a thing, right? Like
Yeah,
that wouldn't have been pleasant.
right.
Like I'd be that guy. Like, dude, what are you doing? So anyhow, um, are you already looking at the fall or no? Are you already thinking about, man,
Oh,
what do we want to? What do we? I mean, have you honed in on any goals or anything like that?
there's an overall goal, I would say, in our program that we want to go win the conference, right? I think that everybody says that, but for us right now, it's really using this opportunity in the spring with these additional hours we can spend with our guys and focusing on what we're going to do, focusing on us and how we can get better. I'm not sitting here trying to game plan for games in the fall or think about how we're going to make it. That's just silly. That's so far away. But at the end of the day, we're going to do some things in the spring that are going to start to make that pecking order, that depth chart, more clear to us as a program and as a staff. So yeah, you're thinking about it. It's always in the back of your mind. That's the best and most stressful time of the year for us as college coaches is that fall season. But everything that you're doing is geared towards, I think, for our program right now, it's just making ourselves better.
Yeah.
Not worrying about what somebody else might be doing or where they're going, but focusing on us and how we're going to get better.
Well, outstanding. I will be out in the fall. I will be there for your preseason because I'm very curious to see how you would rank me. I mean, my speed numbers would
Yeah,
be just crazy good. Crazy good.
I'm ready for
But,
that.
Coach, do appreciate you taking the time today. As always, it's great catching up. One of these days, I got to get out to Lexington
Yeah,
on business travels. I think I'm heading out towards that direction probably sometime this first quarter. So I'll definitely make it a point. But do appreciate you taking the time, talking to me today, and great having you on the channel.
appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.